typically, we don't expect those who have lost to appear. So I think, you know, waiting for the Right Honorable Raila to appear, I think was really just, you know, an uncalled for expectation. On the other hand, we expect those who have won the election to appear there big time. Again, that was the norm. You know, the president-elect Ruto appeared there, you know, with the entire family, as it actually should be. We expected both, I mean, the losing party to sort of, you know, reject the results. And again, that again is generally expected in a very close election. This election has been, it's gone to the wire actually. It's very, very close. I mean, I think this is the lowest percentage after our new constitution, you know, that somebody has gotten elected with at 50.4. That is actually very, very low. You remember Uhuru got elected at 54%, yeah, and others. Yes, so again, we actually had those. Then, of course, what we didn't expect, though, was a split IBC. You know, the Serena announcement, to say the truth, that actually caught me totally off guard. And I had no clue what was happening. I was wondering whether somebody had, whether Chebukati had escaped from Bomas and was going to announce results from Serena just to keep away the politicians. But it turned out that you know, there were commissioners who did not, what did they say? They didn't want to associate. They were very careful with their words and economical also, to associate with the results. And they said it was because of opaqueness. No, the first thing they said was that the process has been very good. The earlier day, I mean, most of the process has been very, very good. But they say towards the tail end of the process, there was opaqueness. I think the word that you know, clung to our minds was opaqueness. And I thought I understood English, but just a short while, even now, just, you know, before we started discussing, we're trying to figure out what the word opaque is and whether it is entrenched somewhere in our laws. Yeah, because I think you know, that statement was actually quite confusing. But of course, almost immediately, we had quite a bit of reactions from quite a number of media stations, especially around that issue of split IBC. And it was clarified that the returning officer in presidential election is Wafula Chebukati. And I think we're starting to understand these things better, that the office of the chairman of IBC is an institution in itself.
Yes.
Outside the IBC. Yes. And it is that institution that declares the presidency, not IBC as a whole. And as such, as it was suggested by some analysts, a number of them lawyers, that this might affect the legitimacy of the result, but not the legality of the result. So I think we're getting into that space where there'll be a lot of semantics, legalese, big English, and so on, that Kenyans realize that a lot of the things that we've always assumed we know, we actually don't, because they're defined differently in our constitution and statutes. And of course, there are also common English words that are not necessarily legalese, like the opaqueness and you know, not associating with the results and so on. These may not necessarily have legal weight, but of course as issues of legitimacy.
Dennis, you are aware that Caroline holds a degree in literature. Dr. Mose holds a degree in literature. Perhaps, Caroline, you can help explain or define said opaqueness.
I think that word was used in a very interesting way and at a very interesting time, because we had commissioners sitting in IBC from Tuesday evening, essentially the process after we finished voting. And I remember on record as having said here, the longer this takes, the more we give room for all these kinds of shenanigans. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. When these people come and say the process is opaque, I think they were going for a word that meant the opposite of transparent. You know, so opaque, you know, milky, you cannot necessarily see through, you know, the glass because, you know, it's milky, it's shrouded in something. So that is what I thought they meant. But the context in which they use, you know, they use that word we distance ourselves from the result that is going to be read at Bomas because the process has been opaque. They are the only people who know what that means. Because when you say the process has been opaque, and we know that, right at the outset, IEBC was very clever, I think, to open the public portal. Forms 34A were in full view. Anybody from Indonesia to wherever could download them, could see them. Forms 34B were online, they were there. That is, I think, the key masterstroke that IEBC did in opening up the process for anyone to have access to. So when these commissioners come in and say opaque, we can only allude to the back end of the things that were happening. So the question now becomes, what did they mean by that? And they're the only people who can answer that. And I think them refusing to take questions and them refusing to actually say what they meant, I feel was a disservice. And all they did was just whip up anxiety and put paid, to the rumors that there was monkey business, there was shenanigans going on at the back end, that something happened, and there were all these allegations that the IEBC chair was supposed to read these results at 3, and he ended up reading them at around 5:30, actually going to 6 p.m. And in between, there were all these allegations that he was a man under siege. We could see a lot of, some repugnant things going on screen. We saw legislators engaging the police in brawls. A lot of sideshows. They even went online, later, and were using 4-letter words to describe the entire process. So for me, I feel that these 4 commissioners, one, distancing themselves at that point, late in the game, as the result was being led, for me, I thought that was very disingenuous. It was very dishonest, in my view, because if you've been sitting and actually issuing results all through, and then you come back at the end and tell us you're distancing yourself from those results, that, for me, there was a disconnect there. I felt that they were not being sincere with the nation. They should just have come out and said, this is the problem, if indeed there was a problem. And of course, now we are even asking ourselves, are these the 4 commissioners who were appointed by outgoing President Uhuru? So there are all these questions rising up. And I feel, for me, that part of the drama is drama we did not deserve as a country, is drama that was unnecessary. And indeed, if this process has not been transparent, which is how they came in to use the word opaque, and there is evidence, then there is recourse in the law for that. But making these sorts of statements without any backup, without any context, for me, I felt was very irresponsible, especially because the country we had been holding our collective breath all through the week, waiting for the results. And at the point where we were supposed to exhale and say, all right, this is the president we have all, this is the president that has won, we need to move forward. They come in and say, we still cannot breathe. I feel, for me, was very dishonest.
Let me just do a quick rejoinder there, because yes, that statement was very short.
Yes, deliberately short.
So the words must have been very carefully chosen. I'm looking at Article 81 of the Constitution,
yes,
that highlights the specific values that our electoral process must have.
Yes.
And those 5 words are there. It has to be, there's accuracy, there's transparency, there's impartiality, there's neutrality, and there's accountability.
Yes.
Those words are there.
Yes.
I'm not the one who's meant to be asking questions, but supposing they said not transparent, why did they avoid the words in the Constitution,
yes, and
used an English word that is outside on the street that, legally does not have that much weight? Because if they said for example, they would have said that the process towards the tail end was not transparent.
Yes.
Then they could have actually already discounted one core value in Article 81 of the Constitution.
Yes.
But they chose to say opaque.